Everybody, here we are back again. I've got another great guest here, a new dad I've never talked to before, and I'm going to learn about him just right along with you. So we'll see what we see and learn what we learn. Today, we're going to chat a bit with Joel from the Insane Asylum Podcast. He's a supernatural investigator, so I'm sure that we will spend maybe too much time on that. I've got a little bit of personal experience that I was going to run by you, so we will get into the paranormal and we'll also touch a little bit on dad stuff because I mean, this is a dad podcast. So with that being said, Joel, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you got going on.
Well, I started a podcast back in 2017 with a buddy of mine. It's due to mostly because I'm disabled. I'm a survivor of leukemia, form of blood cancer. So I got diagnosed in 1995. And about the time my youngest was 6 months old. So, yeah. So, I held on to my kids for dear life. I fought for them. Then in 2000, right around 2019, we switched things up because we were kind of ticking people off too much, So we weren't getting very many subscribers or anything on YouTube. People didn't want to hear our opinions about politics and stuff, We were just speaking the truth. And I think it had a lot to do with, I don't like the orange clown that they call him, I never liked him even before he ran for president the first time. But we got to discussing it because we both had some experiences in the paranormal, and we went that way, and it's been a hell of a ride ever since.
Right on. Cool. It's good that when things just kind of fall together on their own like that.
Yeah, we won an award for the Wisconsin Podcast Association in 2020. I was a guest speaker at the Milwaukee Paranormal Conference in 21 or 22. So
I'm not built for public speaking at that level. That's I don't know. I would need to take so many nerve pills that I would end up asleep before I made it on stage.
I had stage fright really bad. I'm not kidding you. I had stage fright really bad. And when we did this, I was worried. And the guests we brought along with us to have up there with us, he told me, don't look him in the eyes, the audience in the eyes and stuff. He's like, and he didn't do the one that's always common, picture everybody in their underwear or whatever.
Yeah.
He says, look above and beyond them. And it worked.
Right on.
Actually made it through. I thought I was going to have a nervous breakdown on stage.
That sounds like something I would be doing. Yeah.
I didn't think I'd get through it, but now I've gotten so much better. And I think my podcasts and being a guest co-host on other podcasts and filling in for some people and so on and so forth, because I'm not just on mine. I end up on a few others that's part of this network that I'm part of. So
right on. We reserved the last little bit of the podcast to talk about whatever. So if your other stuff that whatever you don't mention throughout the course of the conversation, we'll get in there at the end. But as far as I guess we'll just go ahead and get the dad part out of the way first. Like I said, I've got some personal supernatural stuff I wanted to run by you, so that's what's really on my mind right now. But in terms of being a dad, let's check that box. What's your kid situation? How many kids do you have?
Well, as far as I know, it's kind of a joke because there's one out there that I'm not sure of that could be mine. Okay, he's tried to communicate with me and find out him, but I have 3 kids, 2 girls and 1 boy. The boy's in the middle. Okay. They've got two separate mothers. The two oldest are natural brother and sister, and the youngest has a different mom. My oldest is, well, let's see, I'm going to be 57 in March. Yeah, so she's 37. I was 20 when she was born. So,
Starting to, I mean, I don't have any siblings, but it's starting to kind of sound like my dad. And you're younger than he was, but in terms of when he had me and what have you.
Yeah, and then I was married. I got married in 2010, but I knew the woman. I was dating her for 4 years before that, so we got married, and she has 3 kids. and same as me, 2 girls and a boy, and the boy's in the middle as far as the ages go. Okay. But when I met her, her kids were still in high school. So, and they end up basically, I'm not a stepdad. They call me dad. And I didn't ask for it. I told them, just call me Joe, you know. That's how it started. And then somewhere along the line, it became dad to them.
That's a huge life change. Would you say, I mean, obviously they're coming in at different ages, but would you say that being a dad this second time around, well, you were always a dad, like you didn't stop, but like being a dad with these kids, is that harder or the same as when you were raising your own kids?
It's much harder because these three kind of have, issues that could have been taken care of when they were much younger with a little discipline and talking to, they've got their own set of problems, like everybody else does, but they don't want to listen to me. And that's the part that pisses me off. They don't want to listen to the wise old man. This wise old man's been through a lot. And if one of them would have just have been doing what I've been telling her, just come stay here with us, stop hanging around with the trouble, spending your money on them, you'd be out of debt, have a car, and on your own in no time. No, don't want to listen to me.
Yeah, that's parenthood right there. I dread when I reach that point where I know the answers, I know what's right, but he just chooses not to listen, just or actively like does the opposite just to make me mad or something.
Well, yeah, you make mistakes growing up. We all did. I mean, I know I was a pain in the ass to my dad. He'd probably, if he was still alive, he'd probably tell you something like, yeah, I was the reason he was drinking, But, we learn from our mistakes. I've learned to try to never make the same mistake twice. I grew up with some good old fashioned morals, never hit a woman, respect your mother, respect your elders, that kind of thing. And with my own kids, my own 3, I kind of laid those same rules down. And my kids have been through a lot, especially youngest, but I didn't have to worry about those 2 first. I mean, they were raised right. I was so proud of them. My daughter was like a CNA at 17, graduated honor roll, didn't have to worry about her, graduating. My son didn't have to worry about him either. He was playing football, he was the jock. He did all that stuff. He struggled a little bit his senior year, but as boys at that age, at 16, 17, we get distracted easily by those girls,
I think we all kind of struggled in senior year.
Well, yeah, that's the reason. So, kind of struggled, gave up football, all of that, but still didn't have to worry about him later. Now he's married and I've got my third grandson. It was like September. Grayson was born. So
bigger every year, it seems like.
yeah, I've got a
So
lot of grandkids. So
do you have do you have another dad, like, the kids that you from the relationship
yeah,
you married into? Is there another dad in the
yeah,
situation?
yeah. I
And
had I had a stepfather
how's your, like, how do you deal with him?
when I had it. My stepfather or the kids, my
The kids,
stepkid's
the
dad.
kid's stepfather.
Oh, I don't like him. Man, I'm a good judge of character. Before I got leukemia, I was a security officer and a private investigator for quite a few years. So,
Cool.
and then before that, jack of all trades, but mostly working with the public in some form, So I became a good judge of character and learned to trust my guts. And there's something called, what was it called? There was a thing where my oldest stepdaughter's oldest, or my wife's oldest, Barbizon. It's like a modeling school thing. She was going to this in high school. And I saw him walking across the gym floor, and the first thought that came to mind, he was still quite a few feet away, that I just wanted to smack the shit out of him. But there's reasons for that. You don't do, as a father, when your kids have kids, you don't live off of them. You don't sponge off of them. You don't take, the money out of their pockets that they use to feed and clothe their own kids, and that's the type of guy he's been pretty much since I've known him.
So he's still in the picture even today?
Oh yeah,
Like, you have to deal with him?
but they tend to. I don't deal with them. Those kids tend to, they like him, they love him, whatever, but they'd rather not be around him so much sometimes, and there'll be those days where they'll call him by his name instead of dad, you know. It gets that bad. The guy's a user, but according to his son, he's changing. Well, time will
Well,
tell.
good luck. It can happen to anybody if the
Yeah,
right,
it can happen to anybody, but some people like that, they've had their stripes so long they can't change.
it does become harder the older and the more ingrained that your habits become. I will agree with that. You touched on your own dad, and I did want to go back to that because you said that you mentioned that you were raised what you considered to be basically the right way. So I was wondering, did you have a good relationship with your dad, your stepdad?
Well, I had a good relationship, better relationship with my stepdad, and I wish I would have given him the chance early on. Um, but my real dad, he and I butted heads quite a few times. He would never practice what he preached. Okay. And he was very judgmental. I never heard "I'm proud of you" out of his mouth. You know, I think the guy loved his beer more than he loved his kids sometimes. That's sad to say, but it's true. I mean, he took it to when he went to raise money for my medical bills and stuff that incurred through the 2.5 years that I lived at a hospital. He it I think he kind of skimmed a lot off the top.
Ooh, man.
You know, um, he didn't trust banks. And then you got my stepfather. They were both alcoholics, but my dad was like instant asshole at alcohol. My stepfather was a little bit more of a lush or a comic when he drank. Okay. But he was like the most honest man I've ever met in my life. And I'll
Wow.
always say that about him. And I know he loved my mom because I learned a lot from him just by watching how he treated my mom.
That's cool. So that's where you learn to treat like women the right way.
Right. I mean, he went to the grocery store. He came back with a dozen roses for my mom.
That's
You know,
cool.
I mean, they bickered like an old couple, but never really fought. You know.
Right on. That's good. It's good that you have those memories.
Yeah, they were married for 28 years,
Wow.
and when he passed away, it wasn't too long after that my mom passed away.
Yeah, that
And
makes sense.
we all said that when my mom passed away, she died of that broken heart syndrome.
That's I mean it's a different situation, but that's kind of sort of what happened to my dad recently. I lost my grandma in July, and I lost my dad in August. And like you would never have thought that it was going to affect him like that. But when she died, he basically just gave up.
Yeah,
It
especially if
appears,
you're mama's boy.
yeah, and but he never gave that off. Like they continued, they had a relationship until death, but like he was more like they just didn't, they didn't know life without each other, so they just kept talking. It's not like they got along necessarily.
Oh,
They
I got
just,
along with my mom. I got
did you?
along with my mom. I called her at least 2 or 3 times a week, you know. And when she died, I if I didn't have my wife, I probably would have ended up in a mental hospital or something, you know. My mom was my best friend. I mean, I play a trick because StreamYard, you got the easy magic of having a green screen and stuff. It's real easy to do. And I've got a picture. I'll tell you a story. My mom never drove. So after the leukemia, I was a cab driver for a while. So I tended to have more time on my hands, could take a break whenever I needed. So I always took my mom wherever she needed to go. And one day, just out of the blue, she looks at me and this wasn't so gray as it is now. Looked over at me and she says, "Anybody ever tell you you look like Charles Manson?" And it's like, "Thanks a lot, Mom."
I can kind of see it. If you pretend you've got a cross carved into your forehead,
Right.
yeah, I kind of see it. I'm a little more of a, well, I don't know. I'm not a fan of Charles Manson, but I've definitely seen him, more than a couple times through podcasts and stuff like that. That's, a fascinating topic all in its own. But that's actually a good, when I have like, typically I have at least like a co-host, sometimes two. And there's like, I like to give them the chance to talk, and they will go off on whatever they go off on. And I'm over here like building up my thoughts and getting ready to make myself sound really smart the next time I open my mouth. But when they're not here, I just kind of like talk to the guest about whatever. It's just like we're kind of hanging out at your house and
Yeah.
just talking. So
Yeah. Well, we
sometimes
do
like
that all the time. We go off topic all the time on my paranormal show. It happens.
right on. I feel like if nothing else, it's more fun that way.
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
I'm not I'm not really concerned with trying to be a certain way. So as long as I enjoy it, that's what's important. So I mean, that's basically my excuse for why we're moving on from the dad side of things and on into the paranormal.
But
And
I got more to that Charles Manson story for you, quick.
oh, right on, go on.
So it wasn't but 2 weeks after that happened, I'm told I got to go to the hospital because my cousin got into a car accident. So I go up there and I get to the room. My aunt, my mom's sister, younger sister, baby sister, introduces me to the nurses. She says, "Oh, by the way, this is my nephew, Jesus Christ." Okay. Now I'm standing in line at Walgreens about a month later, and a guy comes up to me and he's like, "Hey, aren't you that hippie dude from that 70s show, Leo?" And it's Tommy Chong.
Tommy
I
Chong.
wish, you know.
Wow. You are like every man. Everybody sees something different when they look at you.
So I've had a little bit of fun with all three of those, you
Right
know.
on. I think I was going to say that I see a little bit of Lemmy from Motorhead.
Yeah, I wouldn't know who that is.
Uh, it's the facial hair more than anything else, but um, it's cool that like I don't really get the I think the only thing I remember someone said I look like Daryl from The Walking Dead, but I don't know how to take that because he's always dirty and like shaggy looking. So whatever. But like I said, moving on here to maybe there's somebody that's going to listen to this and it's like, thank God they're getting to the supernatural stuff. So you've got a podcast, obviously, and I take it for granted that having done this for so long that you've seen some pretty crazy stuff. So we're just going to jump right into the deep end. What is the craziest thing that you can remember seeing, like in person?
Well, we were investigating this art mall, okay, in Grafton, Wisconsin. Now, this building was built in the 1800s. So it started out as like a lumber mill, okay, because it's right next to the Milwaukee River. Then it got turned into a flour mill. And over time, both places, lots of accidents, okay. But the freakiest thing that I ever saw so far, but I actually saw it with my own eyes and I wasn't prepared, was we're going down the hall and imagine an old building. They've got those real thin metal strips going right across them. And there's lights connected to each, 3 lights connected to each one. You turn on the switch at either end of the hallway, all 3 lights go on at the same time. Now I'm just walking down the hall with a friend of mine that was there with us, and we were going outside to have a smoke. And as we get to that particular hallway, the middle light flickers at us, actually comes on and flickers at us. And I'm glad somebody else was there besides me and saw this, because they would have thought I was crazy, because I didn't have a camera. We weren't prepared. It was kind of still a rookie at all of this. And now I've got a body camera. So if something ever happens like that again, I got evidence,
Cool. I'm I'm not one to experience a lot. I've got a couple of times in my life that something's happened that I can kind of refer back to, and I think I've touched on both of them in the podcast before. But what is currently on my mind, and I'm just going to throw this out there, you can give me your kind of take on it. And so my grandma, like I said, she died back in August, and we ended up having to move into her home because we just long story short, we can't sell it until a year after she dies.
Right.
So that wasn't cool. My wife actually found her like laying to my right here. This used to be a bedroom, and she found her face down. And then before
she died in the home?
Yeah, she died like right beside me. She's coming out of the bathroom kind of to my 2 o'clock, and took a couple steps into the room and just face planted. So we've got that. Before that, this is a few years ago. This is like 6, 7, no, even more than that. This is like 10 years ago. Her boyfriend that used to live here with her, he died out in the driveway about 10, 12 feet away, off to my 11 o'clock.
Okay,
after me and my wife moved.
I got a question. Where's here?
We live in East Tennessee.
Okay.
she didn't really tell me too many details about that, other than that he died out in the driveway, and that supposedly, like, there was a couple of things that had happened that she blamed on him, but she said it with a laugh, so I didn't take any, any credit. I didn't give it any credit. After me and my wife moved in, one night, like, all these details that I'm leaving out, like, they're just to quicken the story. But basically, one night I find the neighbor doing CPR on his mom. She's died, and I go over there and see it happening. And that one happened about 25 feet away. And I walked over there, saw it, and then shortly thereafter the ambulance showed up. So I didn't have anything more to do with it. So that sets the plate, or sets the table, so to speak, for what comes next. And that is that suddenly, after living here for a couple months, we've started to get like unexplainable sounds that seem to come from inside the wall, but aren't like really, they're not really actually something that we can pinpoint, because sometimes I'm like, oh, that's the water from the faucet in the shower, or oh, that's
you got those
the this or
devices
that.
around your house too?
I'm sorry?
Do you got like Alexa or Google or something around your house?
Not like a tower or anything, and I don't have any of that. We don't use Alexa or any kind of home work, like home service where we can like speak out and get it to do something.
Oh,
we're not quite that advanced
I
yet.
was just asking because I asked this of everybody that's had their little activity in their houses, if they ever have those things just go off when it's completely quiet.
That like, is that that's a bad sign, or that's just a sign of okay?
That's a
No,
sign that something's there. Maybe.
Well, that would be bad. We have not had that. I did have my son was napping one day, and I did have a toy in his toy box go off for no discernible reason while he was 3 feet away in his crib asleep. That was very uncomfortable, but I just put that down to like toys shifting on top of it for some reason, and making that button turn. So we got the sounds, we've got the toy. And the other day I'm over here, there's a couch behind the laptop here, and I'm over here taking a nap, and I get a freaking cold spot. Like I've got my hands down around my crotch area, and like I can feel the cold with my fingers, like just off the edge of the couch, like as if it's I don't want to like use too many descriptive terms for it, but basically like it was a floating cold spot. And I don't know how high or low it went. I just know that it was basically the height, at least the height of my knees, because that's where my hands were. And I was laying on my side. So we'll say 2 feet, 2.5 feet, something like that. And that's the first, there's no reason for that. There's no open window. There's actually windows there with curtains that would billow if it was wind. There's no vent that would blow cold air in there, in that general direction. So these are all things that I've just kind of tried to ignore or to put down, as other things. So with all that laid out there, I guess I just want to know, like, like I said, what's your take? If this is your house, what would you do? That sort of thing.
Well, I don't know if I'd do anything. I mean, as far as it goes, it sounds like it's like one of those spirits or ghosts that's just letting you know they're there. Like grandma's like letting you know she's looking out for you. Otherwise, if it was something even worse, you had a lot of stuff going on that could be construed as, I don't want to say violent, that's a little harsh, but where you get things thrown at you or something from across the room, but nobody's there. um, then I'd say it was something else. But in this case, it almost sounds like grandma's just letting you know she's there watching over you in her home.
Well, I do. I've actually told people that like I feel like if there was a ghost, it would be her, but that it wouldn't be like a negative type of haunting because she always wanted us to live here. She wanted me and my grandson and my wife to live here with her before she died. There just wasn't enough room.
So she's just looking over, say, watching out for you.
That's kind of what I've told myself a couple of times when I'm even when I'm willing to admit that it's something, paranormal at all. It's more like, oh, it's a good presence or, helpful or whatever.
Yeah.
So good to know that our opinions on things kind of match up. I really wasn't going to do anything yet because like I said, I'm not even really sure what exactly is going on. That cold spot thing, that was the first time that's ever happened to me in my life, and that was kind of weird.
Probably
But
won't
not if I keep living here. So that was hard to find a rational explanation for, and so I haven't. But with that being said, I'm not like afraid when I'm here alone, and I don't fear for my son, which would be a big motivator. Like if I was suddenly worried that something might happen to him, then that would be like
right.
That'd be huge.
But when it's like a relative like that, and you don't have any negative, or you had a good relationship with them before they passed away, you know, more times out of 10, they're just gonna be like just letting you know they're there, watching out for you, looking over you. I'm gonna check in every now and then, make sure you're safe, that kind of thing. Not really a whole lot to worry about.
Cool. That would be good to tell my wife, because the other day, man, it was crazy. Like she was over here on the couch and I was in the bathroom there, and we started just hearing like just various taps, like they were coming from like different places almost. And then suddenly we heard a sound from out behind me in the kitchen, and we went out there, and it sounded twice. I don't remember if it sounded once I got out there, but once I turned on the light, like it all went away. It all stopped. And it was just crazy. Like it was like I was like, is this a fucking movie? Like what is going on here?
Well,
And
there's one other possibility that it's not paranormal at all. I got stuff like that going on here, but when I chalk it up to paranormal, it's usually when Google goes off and nobody's saying anything to it. And the TV's not on, nothing's in the earshot of the thing. But I hear things in the walls, and all of that. But here, because of my location, and this is a very old mobile type home, it's mice.
that's actually, I said that too. I was like, because we had mice when we first moved in, and we had to put out traps and stuff. And I told my girlfriend, was like, well, I call her my girlfriend. I don't know why I still do that. My wife was like, I'm afraid it's a man outside and he's tapping on the walls and he's going to kill us. And I'm like, I'm worried that it's a mouse and that they're going to chew through some wires and suddenly all the power is going to go out. And so that is also a possibility. We haven't seen any evidence of them, and we have had,
chew through the walls first because the main interest is getting warm and food.
Well, that is a possibility. I mean, like I said, they were definitely here. So,
I get these little bitty field mice, but I found a big rat one day, and man, I'm ready to get out of here. I mean, it's just, I got a dog and she needs more space anyways.
I feel that, yeah.
I've got a Siberian Husky.
Yeah, they need
I've raised
a lot of
those
space.
all my life. I've raised those types of dogs all my life.
Well, that's cool. I've never really I've always been a dog person, but I've never narrowed down like that. It's kind of like a profession. Like growing up, I never really was like, oh, I want to be an astronaut or I want to be this or that. So here we are at 40, whatever. I'd have to do the math, but 40, whatever. Doing
Yeah,
a podcast.
I chose the husky because when I was a kid, I was about 12 years old. Somebody gave me a mix to raise as a puppy while he went out for like a major job interview for a couple of months in Colorado or some shit. And I got really attached to this puppy. He was half Siberian Husky and half Malamute. He grew up to be a fairly big dog and fairly fluffy. And boy, did he have an attitude, and he was very vocal. But the thing about Huskies is whether they're Malamute or they're a Siberian Husky, they love kids. They're like a babysitter,
That's cool.
if you train them right. But they're not good for first time dog owners. Do your research before you get a Husky. Seriously, they are very high maintenance dogs.
Yeah, I was gonna say they come off as very sassy. They're always like, it seems like they're very willing to tell you like when they're unhappy.
Yep, we call her a diva. Her name's Timber Joy, but we call her a diva. She almost pure white. So
Cool. That's a breed of dog. Like I said, I've never had one. I would be open to it if it was like presented to me. We are actually about to go back to get another dog from the Humane Society, but it's not a matter of like we want a particular one. We're really just going to we're going to go and tell them we need a dog that's good with other animals and it's been
well,
here
that's
for a
a
long
good
time.
place. That's always a good place to go, adopt a dog from Humane Society or rescue one from a shelter, it's better than, going out and buying it from a breeder.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, in my opinion. I mean, I'm not going to like trash breeders or piss off breeder
Well,
listeners or
I don't,
something, but like
yeah, you don't want to trash that, but it just in general, because the longer some of these dogs are in like Humane Society type places, the less chance they got for adoption, and then they put them to sleep.
yeah, and that's why we
Make
wanted to
room
get
after
like
a certain time. So you're in turn you're rescuing an animal.
yeah, we figured that we'd get whichever one like fit our criteria because it's not about getting like a puppy or whatever. It's about getting the dog that's like close to being put down. So even if it's like super old, I mean, we'll just consider it more of a foster situation, and until it passes on. But it's probably going to be a pit bull mix because that's all they have here at the pound. It's
Yeah,
like pit
it
bull this,
seems
pit
like
bull
the
that.
common thing.
Yeah,
I went to an actual husky farm for mine, but the lady there rescued, she wasn't breeding the huskies, she was rescuing them. And she basically gave me Timber Joy, and Timber Joy picked me. I didn't pick her. I mean, her mom, they had like a racetrack type thing on the outside of the kennel. So it was all fenced in. It was like double fenced. She let Joy and her mom out. And her mom, I went down, so I could be at their level. So I was down like, kneeling. And mom came and jumped on me and I wasn't expecting it and I fell back. And after that, Joy wasn't going to leave my side. So she came home with us.
that's cool. That's a cool name too. That's not something that I've. I mean, it could be very well be first and middle, but the fact that you say it together, it makes it something that I've never heard before.
Yeah, well, she was also a New Year's Day baby puppy. She was born on New Year's Day.
That's cool. It's cool that you know that because we
So
just kind
she,
of guessed when our dogs were
yeah,
born.
she's 7 years old now.
Wow, those big dogs, they age so fast. I'm glad that she's still kicking, still active enough that you actually need to move to give her more space. So
Yeah.
that's cool. I've I don't think I've ever had a big dog before this one. We got a pit bull now, Staffordshire, I guess it would be called. And that's the biggest dog I've ever had. So mine have just been, restricted because that's all that I was allowed in wherever I was living. But I've always wanted a German Shepherd, but they're
Oh,
kind
I
of
love
scary.
those dogs too. I love those dogs.
My mom had one growing up, and I
But
just remember him being like really energetic and hard to
yep,
play with.
but they've also got a lot of problems that come with them. Like as they get older, they could end up with a lot of these different problems. There was a pair I knew, they were pretty old, but they started getting tumors everywhere,
Oh,
and
well,
they put to sleep, but they were almost 13 years old as it was. So,
I guess, I mean, a bigger dog, that's a pretty good life. That kind of pushes me away though, because I've got so little experience with them. And now to know that they could have, something like that happen. I don't, it's not that like I'm worried about the price. I just don't want to like lose my dog at like, you know,
yeah,
an
you got to
early
do your
age.
research. Always do
Yeah.
your research,
More and
especially
more these days,
dogs.
like, because they're the breeding is just like getting so crazy and mixing like this with that and the other. You just never know.
Well, my dog is so unique. It's the only breed of dog that can regulate its own metabolism.
Wow,
And scientists are baffled about it.
that's crazy. So if it got
She,
loose out in the woods, it'd just be fine.
she is a purebred. So so basically what that means is they, you can fill that dish for a normal dog, the food dish, right? And that dog will sit there sometimes and eat it until it's gone. She only eats when she gets hungry.
And I wish my dog was like that.
Now I can fill a dish and I might not have to fill it for a few days.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm serious. That it's because she regulates her metabolism. In the wintertime she eats more because she's a winter dog. She goes outside, but because of her color, she can't retain the heat. She don't have the black in her enough
Yeah,
of it. She's got some, but not enough. So she don't
that's
like it when
crazy.
it gets too cold.
Your your dog's like a superhero science experiment or something. That's like a crypto or what have you.
Well, huskies are
Um,
unique.
yeah, I'm learning more and more as we go along. I've I don't know if it makes me want them more or less. The fact that it wouldn't eat would make me think like, oh my God, I've done something wrong. I've pissed off my dog. It doesn't like its food.
No,
Something's not right.
because when you got food, they're going to be right there begging.
Oh, okay, like at the table or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
like any other dog.
We had kind of a handle on that with our dogs, and then my son started getting older, and he's like two something now, two and a half, something like that. And he will just randomly not want whatever he's eating and just throw it to whichever dog is nearby.
Yeah,
So like now they've gotten back in the habit of thinking that they're allowed basically whatever we're eating whenever we're eating it. So that's
you got to be
fun.
careful though. Do your research. There's certain things you can't give the dogs.
Yeah, that's a problem. Like I
Yeah,
basically I can't give him anything that they can't have because if I turn my back, I risk him giving it to him. So
because there's a list on the internet that you can find. There's people food that dogs cannot have. It will either kill them or make them sick.
yeah, with my wife's been really like researching to make sure that we don't we don't kill our dogs with some snack we've given our son.
Well, it's like for the longest time, and I still check because I actually don't check and there are other ones, but they say there was an ingredient in peanut butter that if you gave your dog that particular peanut butter with that ingredient in it, it could kill your dog. So I went through the list of peanut butters and found out that at the time Jif was the only one that had it, that didn't have it. So Jif was on the safe list. So I've been buying Jif ever since, you know.
For sure, yeah. I was man, that I was just at the grocery store like 2 days ago, and I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll give Jif a try. I'm like, nah, I do Peter Pan. That's just what I do.
Yeah,
And I
but
got more Peter Pan.
I'm pretty sure now Peter Pan's safe too, because most of those bigger labeled peanut butters like Peter Pan, Skippy, all of those pretty much removed that ingredient when this big article came out about peanut butter and dogs.
That's good because peanut butter is the only thing that will get my dogs to either take a bath or allow us to cut their nails. It's like a wonder drug. They just love it so much they'll let us do whatever we want. Where if we don't have it in their mouth, they're like, no, God, you're cutting my foot off and I won't have that. It's terrible. It hurts so bad. Get away from me. But that peanut butter is just like, oh yeah, go ahead. I don't care. It's crazy. But we also, feed it to our son. So I'm glad that it's not
Well,
like
that's
crazy.
like, I got grandkids and they come over to visit grandma and grandpa, and they want peanut butter sandwich or something, and they drop that and the dog gets it. You got to make sure it's safe
For
because the
sure. Yeah.
dog's going to be quicker than you are.
Yeah, no doubt. There was something just the other day that we were like, I can't remember what it was, but my son was eating some and he was like, I'm done, Daddy. And he reached out to give it to me. And I was like, I don't want it, give it to the dogs. And my wife was like, no, that's bad. Don't give it to the dogs. And I'm like, no, son, don't give it to the dogs. So I'm learning, but for the most part,
Well, that's part of parenthood though.
yeah,
There is
we're
no
learning.
manual to it.
You hear
There's
that a lot.
no instruction book we were given. We learned how we were raised, and we kind of like, well, I didn't like when my dad did that, so I'm never going to do that to my kid, and stuff like that. So you kind of improvise and learn as you go.
That's actually a good point, and that reminds me of something that one of my co-hosts usually asks that I guess I never ask because I forgot about it till now. And it'll be a good thing to kind of end us here to end with, and that is, what would you consider to be your best advice for a new any dad, new or old?
I don't know. I'd say, learn as you go, and if you need advice, and if your dad's still around, go to them. I mean, you kind of take that stuff. If you turned out good and you were raised right, you turned out good, then your dad and your mom did something right. So, you take that and you gotta kind of improvise. You gotta change it with the times because, some things aren't gonna fly like they do now or did back then. They're not gonna fly today, Back when I was growing up, you could use a belt on a kid, or my mom used to get those sticks from
So it's just
they were like real thin. They used to mark the like gas lines and stuff with a little ribbon on them. And if you pulled them out of the ground, you'd get a whole bunch of slivers in your hands.
oh wow, that's way back there. They use metal whatever
Right. They
now.
use like these little whip things on a little metal, yeah, with the flakes still. But no, these were wooden things. They weren't even sanded down, nothing. Man, I remember getting them broken across my back, running from my
So was it your mom that typically did that, or did your parents share the discipline?
well, my parents were divorced when I was about 5 years old.
Uh,
And my dad was rarely in the picture because on his times to come and pick us up, he had too much of this. So my mom wouldn't let us go. My stepfather didn't come into the picture until I was about 9. And then
I've
we kind of fucked with him right away. Excuse me. I didn't mean to do that. I don't know if you could swear on your. He used to come down every morning before we'd go to school. He hadn't found a job yet because he just come to Wisconsin from Texas, right? And then he got introduced by my great uncle to my mom. He introduced him. Anyway, he'd come down every morning when he started living with us. He'd come down every morning and make my brother and I breakfast. And usually it was pancakes or French toast and, bacon or sausage, And it'd take him a while. First time he did it, I mean, my brother and I were like bottomless pits. Growing boys, we were going to eat a lot. My mom come down like, what the hell are you doing? Those kids can cook better than I can, Well, they need a hot breakfast before they go to school, But, well, he kept doing it anyway, but my mom was right. We could cook better than she did back then.
That's a cool memory. I'm always like, it's always cool to hear the things that the guests, like have held on to from their childhood. So that was interesting. There's things here and there that you've said about your dad that I'm just like, yeah, that's my dad too.
But my stepfather, he was like really cool. He's like the dad you always wanted, I mean, we ended up after a while, my brother and I had a nickname for him. We called him the White Richard Pryor. He kind of, if Richard Pryor was white, he kind of looked like him. He had that Richard Pryor style mustache, and he was always cracking jokes.
That's cool.
He was a fun guy to be around. That's for sure.
That's awesome.
It's good that you us to the races every Friday night. No, yeah, Friday night.
Damn. So like, he was like, real dad stuff. Like,
yeah.
Did he? This is neither really here or there,
he taught me how to drive.
Did he ever? Did you ever have that typical game of catch with him?
No, I actually had, that my next door neighbor, between the time my mom got divorced and he came around, our next door neighbor was the maintenance man for the apartment thing, and he used to take me outside because he had a daughter, so he took me outside and taught me how to throw a football around, taught me the right way to hold it, throw it and stuff. So my stepfather never had to do that stuff, but he did spend a lot of time with us. And
that's awesome.
He didn't have to be. He didn't have to, but he did.
That's I mean, a dad is not necessarily somebody that helps give birth to you. He's just somebody that's there.
Oh yeah, and
there when you need him.
I mean, he taught my father, my own father, a guy that drove for a living. He drove city bus. Okay, he drove the city bus for 30 some odd years. Couldn't teach his own sons how to drive because he didn't have patience, but he could teach those people that come there and start at the bus company how to drive one of those buses.
That's weird.
That.
I guess his expectations for you were just super high.
I don't know. I mean, I'm one that turned out just like him. I mean, they always said I was going to, but I didn't. I'm a survivor, and I don't drink alcohol. The worst thing I ever drank is my Mountain Dew over there. I've been drinking Mountain Dew since 1970 something.
Oof.
Yeah, it may not be legal in Wisconsin, but I do have a habit of smoking pot.
It's not legal in Tennessee, but I mean, I may or may not do it too.
I was doing that back in high school, and contrary to what people believe, that it makes you stupid, then my entire senior year, I spent most of it high. I graduated honor roll without trying.
Hey, study high, get high scores. That's what I heard.
I mean, I don't know what it was, but it worked for me.
Yeah,
And now
might
I
not work
have
for
to,
everybody, but
and now I have to use it for medical reasons. I don't have a choice now.
yeah, I don't.
The
I'm
choice.
not being legal. I don't guess I should use it, but that's pretty much what I use it for. I just self-medicate.
Well,
Um,
I got the choice of smoking that or taking about 15 pills a day, twice a day.
nah.
And most of them are going to put me in bed in kind of like what I call a pill coma, because they all got that one side effect, may cause drowsiness.
Yeah, they've all got it. So when you take them all, you definitely get it.
And here I don't need the pain pills. I don't need the muscle relaxers. I don't need something to give me an appetite, because I went through chemotherapy and radiation. And the radiation I went through is called total body eradication.
Yeah.
Okay. And they sit you in a room in your underwear and they flood that room with radiation. Now, you've seen how a snake peels its skin off, right? I was
Yeah.
able to do that right down my arm,
Uh,
peel it off like a glove. But here's the worst part. Radiation burns, it burns the skin. I got burned in places you don't want to be burned when you're a man.
uh,
Okay.
yeah.
Then you get humiliated because the nurse has to come in and rub lotion on your shit, you know, to keep it from hurting so bad.
I I'd stick with the natural harmless plant too if I were you.
So I mean, after what I went through, what can I say? I'd
Yeah.
rather I'd trust God more than I trust the doctors, because most of them pills have all kinds of unseen side effects.
Yeah. I mean, I've never been in your situation or known anybody in your situation. So, take my opinion with a grain of salt, but I wholeheartedly support anybody using cannabis for, medical purposes, because it's just got so many benefits
Well, yeah,
and
especially when
virtually
it
no
comes to
drawback.
cancer patients. You know, I had leukemia so bad. I was diagnosed December 4th, 1995. Okay. My youngest daughter, Ashley, was born May 21st, 1995, about 6 months before I was diagnosed with leukemia, right? They told me I was not going to live to see Christmas that year. That was 3 weeks away. I had to
Whoa.
go through what was called plasmapheresis, which is they bring this big loud machine into the room and they cleaned out my blood. I spent that entire Christmas, and I hope I don't break down because it happens every time I talk about this. I spent that entire first Christmas in the hospital. So I missed Ashley's actual first Christmas. Yeah, she might have only been 6 months old, but still, to me, that was a big deal, you know. So now here we are the following Christmas, and I'm still alive. I've gone through the bone marrow transplant and everything. But now I've got what's called PCP pneumonia. So the doctors weren't going to release me. I'm too stubborn. I went home for Christmas that year. I made a deal with the doctors eventually. I fought with them until I got my way. I got a 48-hour pass so I could spend Christmas Eve and Christmas Day at home with my family. And I sat there that year and I put together my first Power Wheels for my youngest daughter. and I suffered through. I mean, because that type of pneumonia really drags the energy out of you. So, but the kids and having those kids and yeah, I really held on to them. I wasn't going to let them. I basically told the doctors the hell with the mental meds that they wanted to put me on because I'm bipolar manic depressive disorder. And that helps with that too, by the way. I told them I needed all the anger I could get to fight this. And I held on to my kids going, I ain't letting them grow up without me. Right. And they didn't. So here we go. We flash forward. There it is. 9 years later, I'm fighting in and out of court. About 9 years later, I'm starting to fight my youngest grandma in court. Not my mom, her mom's mom, because on May 3rd, just before Ashley turned 9, her mom passed away of brain cancer. So I fought in the court system for 9 years. This evil old woman that hated my guts until she lost everything, lost all her rights in the end, But I ended up fighting all my kids. I had experience with the courtroom, and this is a piece of advice, last piece of advice I'll give to people. And take this from somebody that's learned, because I took police science for a couple of years early on in my life. When you go to court and you're fighting for your kids, and you don't do it for yourself, do it for the best interest of your kid. And always keep your cool. Don't lose your temper. Always address the courts properly, and you win. If you got a case, you win. You don't need lawyers.
Good advice. Anybody listening, keep that in mind.
I had lawyers and they suckered me.
Yeah, for every good lawyer, you hear stories about 9 or 10 bad ones.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
and like half of them know each other. So,
and every time we went to court, she lost more and more. Why? Because I kept my cool. And I addressed the judge and everything properly.
Right on. Well, good. Always good to hear a success story. And in that type of situation, because usually court's terrible all the way around.
Well, you gotta fight for your kids. You have to. Who else is going to?
Right.
In a situation like that.
Nobody cares like you do.
Yeah.
So we went a little long, I guess, but we're going to go ahead and kick it here to the end, and we're going to let you promote whatever you got going on. We've talked about the podcast a little bit, but you can mention that as well.
I'll make it simple and quick. You can check me out, find everything, YouTube channel, Facebook page, just by going to utterlyinsaneproductions.com. Okay, that's our website. You'll find everything about us. We've got an investigation coming up Saturday. I can't say where, because it's a private home investigation. She's actually had stuff thrown at her during Thanksgiving. Wow. This girl, with a lot of witnesses. So I'm interested to check it out. And that's a guest stuff. This Friday. We've got a guest. I can't remember who it is offhand. I don't know where my book is. This Friday, 5:00, and you can find that on Facebook or YouTube.
Right on. All right. Well, you kept it short and sweet. I guess that's going to do it pretty much with every question I've come up with. They all come in the course of our conversation, but I've kind of got like I got too into what you were saying and stopped writing down questions. So I ran out of things to ask. But with that being said, I guess we're going to go ahead and kick it out of here. Joel, man, I do appreciate you taking the time. You've been an awesome guest. You've been fun to talk to. I appreciate your advice, your supernatural advice specifically, as well as all the dad stuff that you gave us, your wisdom there. It's going to help somebody, I guarantee it. And I'd be happy to see you again. Or I don't know if you guys take guests, but I'd be happy to come on your show one day too.
Sure.
But that being said, I guess from all of us here at Your Two Dads, we will check you later.
Stay safe. Anything's possible.